Welcome to the fucking holy hour, my friends. This is it's a very special album episode.
The special what?
Album episode, man.
Oh, yes. It is 1984. Kid you not.
Is it?
It is. Time travel again. Works wonders.
Cool. Going back in time.
Back in time.
Is that a song?
It
or
is.
Just make that up.
Go
back in time.
Little
Is
Huey
that a
Lewis.
Huey Lewis
Yeah,
song?
Back to the Future, man. There's no proper way to start a Cure podcast other than by
Except
quoting.
if you have a boner in a DeLorean.
Yeah, and you're
That's the only acceptable way to listen to a Holy Hour podcast.
It's true. Is you gotta quote Huey Lewis right out of the gate, and nothing says
It's a
Cure.
good band.
Back to the
No
Future.
Cure, no.
Released next year though, so we are a little ahead in the future though. 1985 that came out. This is 1984.
Heart and Soul by Huey Lewis is kind of a jam.
Okay.
That's a really good song.
Yeah.
Heart and Soul.
He's got some
Huey Lewis.
some guilty pleasure ones, or just straight up pleasures. However you feel.
No, just really good. Almost better than majority of things.
Nothing guilty about it.
Off the top.
Yeah. Ooh. All right. Right out the gates. We're
Saying it. Huey Lewis is better.
Well, I'm Gavin, and of course, on the other end of this conversation is our
This
good
is Donald,
friend
man.
Donald. So yeah, we're here to talk.
Hey guys.
Another riveting album episode, as Donald said, and we're in the thick of it right now. We wrap things up.
Yeah.
Previously on album episodes, we just wrapped up Japanese Whispers, the compilation of singles released after the
Which is the
downfall
jam.
of pornography. Yeah, and so the Cure's
good.
in a weird state right now. Things are looking weird, man. And
Are we going to say The Cure or old Bob Smith is in a pickle?
yeah.
Because it's not a band anymore.
No, he's got a lot of things going on, too, as we wrapped up
Where's
last
Simon?
episode. Where's Simon? No Simon. And he's in
Drunk Lowell.
So, yeah, let's catch you up on where Robert is in even pre-1984 when this comes out, because Top comes out April 30th, 1984. And
It's very. I almost wish we released it on the date that the album came out. We were
Yeah.
really close.
if we had our shit together, but
Synchronicity.
clearly that's not going to happen. but it would be nice if we could match them up somehow. But
Yeah.
maybe we'll luck out
But we
with
came
one of
really
them.
close.
But yeah, not too far off. So, but yeah, so where Robert is at this time, he's recording these one-off kind of singles. He started with the electronic singles and such for Walk and Let's Go to Bed, and then they started to get more of a band together for Love Cats while doing all
it by
this.
himself.
Yeah, but it's
That's the biggest part.
clearly him just rocking it at this point, like, whatever, I'm gonna crank out these songs. But at this time he's also doing The Glove with Severin from Susie and the Banshees, and he's in Susie and the Banshees now, not just their touring guitarist.
And Slade on a fucking not pinnacle, but a really good album of the Banshees.
Yeah.
Like Hyena, like.
My favorite Banshees album. I think it's just because I'm biased, probably, but I think that's the best one. I don't know.
This shit opens strong, and you can hear like all my favorite parts of that.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my favorite parts of that, because I love both bands independently, and I love it when the Banshees get all Banshees.
Yeah.
And it's completely different than Robert Smith and the Banshees. Like it's a whole different sound.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's good. And normally I'd be like, that's not, when you have like a big outside force coming into like a very established band and established sound, having like this very strong force like Robert Smith coming into the orbit of a very strong force like Susie Sue, like you would expect craziness, but you got a very nice blend, and it's
Yeah, because
and it's
I feel like you
it's
hear
so
him
sweet.
for sure. I mean, it's like you definitely can get a more Cure feel out of that album than a lot of other Susie ones. You know,
Yeah,
it's like, and it's
it's way different,
yeah,
and it's solid, man. That's one of the best opening. That record's so good, man.
like Dazzle, the opening
Like the
track.
best.
Is
Oh
that
god damn it!
yeah?
That gets me every time, and I feel like a tool every time where it gets me. I'm like, god damn it!
Yeah, it's
Like, but
good.
it's so good. Like,
Totally.
but there's like the Wailing Wall, and there's like these goofy fucking songs that makes no that they're just like ah. But then you have all the shit he's doing with these other bands. Like, I'd rather listen to like the B-side demos of the Glove than the top sometimes.
Okay. All right. Well.
You know what I mean? And that shows like what else he was doing. Like, he was so divided.
Yeah. So you
And that's
think?
what it
So I
does.
guess
And
yeah.
that's what it
First
does to the
actual question
listener.
of opinion. I think we sense where you're going with your overall feelings of the top, but like
I know I'm getting down on some shit.
yeah, but like the idea of being divided, I guess that's a good place to start. So this is a
Yes.
man and an artist, a very centered guy usually, where he seems to have a real focus on what he's doing, especially Cure work all the way up to this point. Do you think that is like a huge negative to the top, where he was just too divided, like he's too
Yes.
spread thin? You think?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's piles of demos. Like, he's obviously always just been doing shit, and that's and this is at a point in his life where it's like he went hard and deep, like
Mm-hmm.
everything leading up to the top, and there's a bit of a like you could see it in like Japanese whispers and like the walk and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um, but prior to that, you have like some of the heaviest fucking records that have ever been made,
Mm-hmm.
and and then just this like, and it's very singular, and then you have this very divided attention of someone that's obviously divided
Yeah.
in themselves, and that's and it's weird, like
And it's strange too, because I didn't really see too much evidence of like label pushing him to make the top. Even I mean, I'm sure there was, and they wanted to like
no,
keep
he
the
could do whatever the fuck he
yeah, and
wanted.
it was like because he had the glove thing going. That was clearly a labor of love kind of deal where he just wanted to make it or whatever. And Hyena was something he was in it, even though that turned out to be even bigger labor of love, I guess, or not love, where it just like that turned out to be one of those albums that just took forever to record because like they start recording that around like even before he starts writing the songs for the top. And he finishes the top in the span of like they're still trying to fucking finish Hyena.
I forgot that.
Yeah, so it
That's
was like one of
dope.
those marathon ones where they like were in the studio like almost like a whole year or something ridiculous, where it just seemed like it was. And they said, and it sounded like a lot of things bounced back and forth. Were like, well, yeah, it took so long because he was so divided, and they just couldn't do it when he wasn't there. But then he was all like, well, it's not my deal. I should just be able to pop in and
Yeah.
play the things or whatever. But yeah,
He got to experience again what it's like to make a record, like a good record,
yeah.
and all the bullshit that goes into it.
Yeah, well, it sounded like it was just a total pain in the ass, and
Like
nobody enjoyed the
like
record. I don't even know if they really even think of it as a good record, even Susie and stuff.
oh, fuck yeah,
I don't,
man,
I
that's
don't.
a good record.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that way, but I don't know how it is like viewed amongst critics and people in Susie's fan base and stuff. But I think it's the best one. Like I
People and
think,
critics can fuck off.
yeah, but I just wonder if they
That's a
think of it.
time-tested good record.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think like
Because I mean, even
Cure-
Robert doesn't seem to really think that like fondly of it. He thought like like wrong single choices, and it was just a big pain in the ass, the whole thing. But well, I guess let's
And-
go ahead and just look at the top then, because it's like And the
I'm
idea that
compared to the Banshees, man. The Banshees are the jam.
yeah,
Like that's such a good band. They pay attention to every fucking nuance,
right.
like down to
Well, he's
the
been on the
tempo.
record of saying that the top when he'd come back to it, like the mixes and stuff, it got rushed as far as release. Like when it was done, he wanted to keep working on it more, and maybe that was carryover from Banshee's stuff, you know. But like, and it does sound more rushed than any Cure record for sure.
Yeah,
You know, more just like where he probably could have even like done more songs and scratched a few and stuff like that if he had like kind of worked on it
yeah.
a little longer. So that's why we wondered. Yeah, that's why I was like getting back to the idea of like I don't know what the rush was really. I mean, he kind of
God, you could do whatever you wanted. He was doing
yeah.
like
No.
20
I mean,
things.
I'm
He's
sure
like,
like you know Chris Perry and like the label were still pushing him to do stuff and just by being a little uncertain of the future of the Cure, they kind of wanted to just put some.
and no one wanted to be involved with it.
Yeah, they just want to put something
Like
out to make sure
Simon
that it's
and
like still a thing.
Paul
I'm
and
sure, but yeah,
Lowell.
yeah. So yeah, it's basically so that's where it starts. I guess is so it starts with like the idea of him recording this album and people. You know, it's obvious. Everyone kind of cites it as going on the record of a Robert Smith solo album if there ever was one, which is a bit unfortunate. You know,
I hate that. It's like, no, it's not.
yeah.
That's not what he would do if he's on his own, man.
Well,
Like,
I think
he
it
had-
is, but it's just
he had full
unfortunate.
Cure shit. If that's what he did on his own, fuck him. 'Cause, like he's like,
Well, I don't
if
think
there
it's
was
so much
Robert
like a
Smith solo
represent.
record, it'd be better than the top, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's I think it's unfortunate because it was at the time that he was doing all this other shit. So it's like it's not
Excuses.
so much that like this was his ultimate vision as a solo album, but like a solo album in the sense
It's like
that
baby steps.
yeah, well he played the
Into a solo
bass lines, he came up with everything. He basically recorded everything but the drums. I mean, nobody else played
Yeah,
on the
totally.
on the record, you know. So I mean, it's definitely a solo album if you grab somebody and sat them down and said make a solo album right now. It's not like his opus or anything, but at the same time in that moment, yeah, it was a solo album. So it's like but
Then you write Wailing Wall.
right. So, I mean,
You know what I mean?
yeah, you know, there's it could get worse, but it's like,
But then you write Dressing Up,
yeah. Well,
which is
let's not dive
the
into
jam.
individual songs yet.
no, I know,
but
but
let's yeah.
like as an example, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you could do this. You can get with this, or you can get with that,
Yeah,
and it could be Wailing Wall or fucking Dressing Up, and that's not as fucking solo.
yeah.
You know, like that. It's a fucking.
But I think that's what they
stupid,
mean when they say it was the closest thing to Robert Smith's
dumb.
solo. They're saying he did everything on the album. He didn't have a band to bounce the ideas off of, and he had this.
right on.
You know, it's not so much like his master vision or anything like that. You know, so
Yeah, exactly.
but
Put Lowell's around.
yeah, you know, Lowell was the
It's gonna
anchor
fucking-
clearly. But
You're
real
gonna
quick
lull
on that
some-
idea, since we're kind of
You're
doing
gonna
the
lull some shit up.
yeah, while we're doing the eagle eye view of the top before we really zoom in, we had a thing we talked about recently where it was kind of interesting, and for the most part, it's just a weird theory of Lowellness or how he is the like the common thread, like in a sense of like keeping the Cure name, and I wonder how much he did have to do with that in the sense that like especially since he did
Like all the good parts of the top. If it was Lowell.
No, I mean more just like the theory of Lowell, as opposed to anything. He's not like his signature licks or anything, what's making it a Cure album, but the sense that like Robert didn't want to make it a solo album like with The Walk or Let's Go to Bed or something, and then into another band with this because he still has Lowell, who's like 2/3 of the old band. I wonder if Lowell had like bottomed out or just like left at some point, like during all that, like maybe it would have just been Robert Smith from here on out, and like all the shit that we know from '84 up would just be Robert Smith or a different band name, and it's like
because you could almost say like The Walk,
yeah,
and that whole time would be more of like that collab between like Lowell and Robert.
Yeah.
Like that to me is almost like it sounds dumb, but if they did a solo record,
Yeah.
you can't have a solo record with two
A
dudes.
duo
you
record.
know?
Yeah.
Like a duo record. Like
Yeah.
that's almost like a more honest representation of,
Yeah.
because it's tighter. It's like the walk is tighter than the top.
Yeah.
Like it's better songs, better melodies, better executed, but the top is broader.
Yeah.
You know, where if you look at like Head on the Door, that's a tighter representation
Right.
of
Because it's a band
of
again at
the
that
walk,
point, though.
the top. You know, it takes like the pop
Mhm.
hooks of the walk and the expansiveness that I think they're exploring in the top and tightening them up.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Like,
sure. In a tighter band, in an actual band, because he doesn't have a
Yeah.
band with this. I mean, he has like nothing.
Yeah,
He's
it's just like a couple of dudes.
yeah. I mean, it's just
And
him.
bringing in some ringers, you know.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Is the top rehab?
Is it Rehab?
You know, if you were to look at someone's life, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think that's
like,
kind of
is the top just rehab where you like collect your thoughts and still do something that's meaningful and like you practice mindfulness and
I think so. Yeah.
and
in a
then
sense,
execute
especially 'cause-
hardcore like because they exploded after that.
Yeah. And I think too, like we started to say before we hit record here, was that if anything that you can even just jump to the main theme of this album, it's like such a transition album. Like the whole thing is clearly like, all right, we're not going to just keep cranking out like catchy singles like Japanese Whispers. We can't go back to what it was with Pornography and Faith in 17 Seconds.
Because it sounds silly, like
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense.
And you know, and not
'Cause
that
you'd
he
be like, you
wanted to
guys
do
are just
either of those
trying.
things, but like he clearly had like an idea. All right, and it was like a certain switch that clearly just got hit. And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna write these fucking songs. I gotta take the reins here and just do it. And like everything's kind of, and it seems silly, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I didn't really see him so much as like the front man through Pornography. They were a band more, you know, and then like he had to be front
evolving into the front man.
Yeah, but then clearly from the top up, I think it's like, yeah, and then especially once he gets like a tight band again, but you could still tell it's like Robert's deal, you know, and it's like, and I think this is like the first sign of that, and like
that's the difference to me, man, and I think that's it. Like he gets a fucking solid vision and a solid band that can do it, and a band that has their own visions and their own ideas.
And exactly what you just said there. Like, I think is more important because I think going into the studio,
he set up the ingredients to make a dope meal.
Yeah,
but
like
he made a bum meal.
Because if he had taken like the solo deal, he'd almost, you know, I'd see a lot of bands that would even do it this way, or songwriters where he plays like he writes the top, goes on tour with this band, and they're good and everything. We'll talk about the live version versus the album, but then like a lot of dudes would have probably just gone in and done the exact same thing again with a different studio band even, or same guys, and then got the tight band to do for Head on the Door for the tour, you know. But it was like, it seemed so important to him at that point, like maybe after this top tour, like I need to take this tight band into the actual studio and write the songs with them and come up with the parts, you know what I mean? It seems like more of a collaborative effort again, even if he is coming up with,
and it's like
whatever in the demo.
It's a big realization.
Yeah, I think it's huge.
Like no one goes through life unscathed. Like everyone's gonna have those big like, whoa, what the fuck was I doing? Like, if you didn't, you're not living life and you're fucking dumb. And why would you expect something other than that from someone that's been like putting out jams and doing good? And like, of course they're gonna have like a period, or you know, and that's how you get. And to me, that's how I gauge people, you know, like, did you go through some shit? Did you recover a better person?
Right.
You know, it's like how you recover from things, and the top is that, you know, like there's great songs on it. There's fantastic things.
Right, and you can hear those transitions. Like we were saying, you can see the progress, you know, like where you take some songs almost sound like they could be on Head on the Door back and forth.
It's
you
like
know?
the
And
comeback kid.
yeah, like like
Rudy,
Right.
Rudy.
It's like he came back with more zeal, and yeah, I mean, because it's like we were saying, like Kyoto Song and like The Blood sound like they kind of could have been on the top, you know. But then there's like shit that could have been a lot better if it was on Head on the Door from the top, you know. Like I feel like if Caterpillar was on Head on the Door, maybe that would have been
like Head on the Door would have just been a banger, like front to back. Like if Caterpillar was
because that one kind of starts to have that feel, you know. As we get into individual tracks, I'll
it leads into like Caterpillar leads into Kiss Me shit.
Yeah.
You know, like aspects that I love of like Kiss Me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like one of the things.
It goes from like that harsh. It's like that transition from the harshness that was so so good to like that romantic wailing aspects of the Cure for me, you know, that I like.
Yeah.
You know, and it is like the little seed.
Mm-hmm.
Some IVF, you know?
Yeah.
Like where you're like planting some eggs and come and like together and like there's some stages.
Yeah.
There's stages.
It is the transition for sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
But while in that, so yeah, maybe two main themes of Top from the bird's eye view is that it's clearly the transition album, and then the idea that it's just all over the place, which is like more of a
very all over the place,
which is rare for a Cure album, which is you know normally it's just like whatever. Most bands are all over the place, but
it's
like
very like a schmear,
because
of a mood.
If you look at everything they had put out at this point, even their singles, it's like, all right, we'll keep this focused on this being the electronic stuff. This is the jazzier single, and then like clearly like Faith and Pornography and all those have like a distinct feel, and this one's just like so fucking like flighty, where Shake Dog Shake could be with any of their rockin' cool songs or whatever, and then it just gets this world music thing, and that's kind of one of my main where it's like I don't know where the fuck that came
whole
from.
World music aspect, man, like that like when I was a kid, when I was a little boy listening to The Cure, like this record took me out of like whoa, like what is and it kind of took me out of it, and it was like that world music aspect of it. And it's not that I wasn't like I listen to Peter Gabriel. I know what world music sounds like.
I mean, aside from the fact that you're just clearly racist, but other than that, it's hard to handle these world sounds when you're completely racist. It's hard to get into a sitar and a Indian flute or no.
Yeah, it's not that it was such a foreign thing to me at that age. Even, it's my point.
It still sounds weird. I mean,
it really fucked me up with them. Like that record's always like the Top's always been like that weird record for me, because it was so like world music-y and it wasn't cohesive, and I when I first listened to the Top, like I hadn't listened to like Hyena, like I think I maybe and I didn't listen to The Glove until later, but I didn't understand what was surrounding it, and I kind of longed to listen to that record in that like period of innocence. Or I'm making quotey fingers, innocence, or whatever, in that time period, like. I kind of long to listen to that with those ears, but
and it's not even like a cohesive world vibe where you could tell he just had his Indian phase and everything
like
just had like his sitar in
like
it
with the Beatles like went to India or whatever.
But I mean, it's like like Bird Mad Girl is like got like Spanish shit going on, and same with Caterpillar or whatever the hell's going on in Caterpillar, and then like the Middle Eastern stuff of Wailing Wall. I mean, it's just like this weird, and like like all kinds of like was like almost like a gong sound going in the song The Top, you know, it's like the big chimes and shit, you know, it's just like so many weird.
There's lots of harmonica in that.
Yeah, harmonica,
like which is
weird
garbage.
instrumentation.
Like anyone that wants to record a harmonica can fuck off. Like
Nah.
why would the Cure fucking?
Yeah, it's just weird for the Cure for sure. I mean, yeah, if you're not like busting out some Springsteen kind of jam or something, I don't know what the fuck that would.
Saxophones?
Yeah,
That's very
saxes.
Springsteen-y. Did Clarence Clemens come in and?
It was 1984, man. I don't know. Yeah, and yeah,
It's
I mean,
so
at
weird,
least
man.
in the weirdness of that, it is still a very undated sounded album. Like all Cure shit, it's like there's only a few songs that like are very like, oh yeah, this sounds like super cokehead '80s shit, you know. But like,
Yeah.
and maybe even more so than any other Cure one. But at the same time, it's still so fucking weird that it's not very dated, you know. Or you don't really feel like it's like a.
You don't think it feels dated?
I do, but not in like a Duran Duran way or something when you listen to it, you know? Or, I mean, it's still fucking weird. I mean, it's more the production and stuff.
Because it doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Totally. It's a little rough on the edges, so it makes it feel a little bit more like a Men at Work album or something. I don't know. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's so all over the fucking place. Yeah. Well, what I gathered, though, it was actually fairly widely received. It was like a fairly positive response. Most like reviews and stuff were like, yeah, it's different from the Cure, but it's, you know, different.
What do you
I think
make of it?
I think they were like saying, giving it credit because it was different, and you know, like it was a fairly well received record, which is weird as shit to think that like how many great ones they had that people were just like, nah, whatever, you know, like. But
Like all the records prior to that, where they're just like album reviewer people were just like, you know, like Faith really made me sad, and like
yeah,
pornography fucking freaked me out. Like, and then
clearly a
you know, like-
home run swing with the Top, just nailed it.
yeah, and they're just like. I'm surprised like the review for the Top is just like a Jesus
Question mark.
like
What is
Jesus
happening?
guys, god damn.
Yeah.
like what the fuck? Like it's not like a love or hate thing. It's just like what?
Yeah. And I think
Like,
that's what that is kind of the
It's
bottom
such
line.
a left fucking turn, man, and that's always a turn in the band, like, cause they get into like Head on the Door and like Kiss Me, and
Yeah.
it's
Well, how about this
such a
question?
left turn.
When you think of the progression and the transition album theme and everything, like how much of that influences the way you listen to it? Like, because you know, at this point, obviously, we got this in the lump sum, and I always had a in favor of the Top interpretation of it, like is in the sense that I didn't really care because it wasn't like I would have hated the Top a lot more.
It wasn't a pinnacle record.
Yeah, it was just like an extra one to have, you know, and like it is like the one I always go back to when I'm like so sick of everything because it's like,
Yeah,
you know, and
totally,
it's just because
man.
it's a weird album and I probably have listened to at least amount of it, all the old classic ones. It's probably, you know, technically my least favorite, but at the same time, I like it. You know, there's
That's
weird
what's up,
shit,
man.
you know, and it's like. But I
I know what
wonder
you're saying.
if I had been a fan that like has been there from the start, and then around this time when this fucking record came out, I would probably been like, "Whoa, what the shit?" You know, like I don't
Yeah,
know. I
like-
probably would have hated it a lot more, but like now I'm just going, whatever. You know, it's like,
I know what you mean, man. Like,
and I can see how it got him. Like we're saying, transition. I see where it
Yeah.
got him from the singles post pornography to Head on the Door. So I'm like, yeah, it's a bridge. You know, it was necessary. Wasn't fun going over the bridge.
but if
I don't
that's
know.
like the
but-
first thing that you heard,
Yeah, no.
like,
that was
like if the Top was like
the
like,
only
hey,
Cure
what's
album.
This? The Cure. I've never heard of
Yeah.
them. I'm gonna listen to the Top.
Yeah.
But
How-
I know what you mean, man. Like,
Do you think when you look at it in that perspective, do you like it more or less? You think?
I like it a little more.
Okay, cool.
Cause I remember like as like a kid, cause I've been listening to this record for like 20 fucking 5 years or some shit.
Right.
Like however old I am, like I've
Yeah.
been listening to this record for fucking ever,
Right.
and and we got like cum dumped
Mm-hmm.
with the Cure and all their catalog. Like we were pretty young, we got into them, and it was just like an avalanche of stuff,
Yeah.
and it was a lot to sift through. But the older I got, I've been through phases where I'm like the top is like dumb as fuck, and that's kind of been like the biggest phase, but it goes through phases where I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, just the drum fills on it are so good.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like big epic, like boogada boogada boogada, but like just really good drum fills, and it's like a different dude, but
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. But like, it's more expansive songs,
Yeah, because this
and
is
I
the
think that's what
first.
I like. And
Yeah. Sorry.
like, I like that exploration into expansiveness with them. And it's like a different expansiveness. It's dabbling in like bigger uh, lyrics,
Yeah.
song structure versus like musical assault.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I like that. Like, it's weird. It's one of those things that it's always kind of tricked me. Like, which I love in a band. Like, I listen to a record that I hate more than a record I like. You know.
Yeah.
But because it's like, it's intriguing.
Which is
Because
clearly
it's like
because you hate every Cure record. So.
Yeah,
Just
no,
kidding.
but it's
just-
like, yeah, but it's like, why don't I like it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it's
It,
challenging and it's weird, and like you
yeah,
said, it's something different, and especially like you're saying, as kids, it was interesting because we gravitated towards all the obvious stuff, and then you dig into like and then there's like this early dark phase, and then there's like this, and then there's like and then there's this top album. We're like, all right,
it
but
is.
I remember
It's
like
the
this.
more you learn and the more you think about it, like the tighter the sieve gets.
Yeah.
Like,
And in those
figure
early
some
days of
shit out.
acquiring all the tapes and whatever and what random order, it was like there was definitely a phase where I was like, I just latched onto this one because it was like the one I hadn't listened to a billion times, and I was like,
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah,
I love
totally.
this, but like I don't know what the hell's going on, And
It's like, what's left?
yeah, yeah. What else we got till the next one?
And like, what's next?
But going back to what you said about the drums is interesting because this is worth noting in the sense that like through Japanese Whispers there was like some session drummers and then like electronic stuff, but this is the first proper Cure album to not have little drums, and that's a huge shift just in the songs,
That's a biggie.
and you can
And
tell. Yeah, I mean it's like
that dude kind of nailed it, man. And he kind of
yeah,
set up a bit of a template.
Andy Anderson.
Yeah, he was
It's a
really
strange
good.
name.
Like,
So yeah, I was gonna ask your opinion on him being a drummer. How do you feel like? I mean, the differences between Lowell and Boris are obvious, I guess, in a sense. But like,
yeah,
but
this
just
dude was a perfect bridge, man. This
Yeah.
guy was like a walking drum machine.
yeah,
Like, that guy was really good.
yeah,
I love the drums on the record. Like, the drum fills are like Shake Dog Shake, man.
yeah. So
Like, which is
good.
like like such good drum fills, and they're so well timed, and they like his drums, like his rhythms, like he really like works this like push and pull
Mhm.
aspect that the Cure, I don't think,
Yeah,
like, it's kind of new for them,
yeah,
like, because they're rhythmically always very like drum machiney and like pop punky and just very like simplistic drum beats, and you have this motherfucker this dropping like meaningful
yeah,
drum fills that like push and pull time in the songs, and like lyrically when you start like riding with the aspect of like that push and pull of rhythm, and you can and time
Mhm.
in a song,
I don't
But
know.
that's
Yeah, it's
dope,
it's, it's
man.
pretty intense. And then like just seeing
That's
how.
why I like the record, but I don't like any songs. I like very few songs on it. Dressing Up is dope.
Yeah. Well, let's do the quick run through of the songs. Like we said,
Yeah,
we didn't
dude.
want to dwell on the songs like too much on in between, like every little aspect of the songs, but just a quick rundown of the tracks because they are pretty diverse and have like a funny
Yeah,
sentimental
dude.
attachment for sure. But so yeah, I think like you're saying with Shake Dog Shake coming out the gates, I think that's probably everybody's favorite on this. Like it's
Drum fills on that one, or what's up?
yeah, the whole song is
They're
just like
fantastic.
I mean, the fact that they can still open shows with it, and it's just like the perfect opener, and so good, and like just
That
it
that's one
rocks.
of the
It's weird, and it's got every cool Cure aspect of like what rock and Cure should be, and it's like,
yup.
and it has like those elements of like it could have been like. You see the timeline when you stretch it back to like even Three Imaginary Boys and shit, where it's kind of there. And
And
then,
this sounds so good, turned up super loud.
yeah, for sure.
Man, like, I love that.
I had a crazy random thought that I haven't really thought about long enough, like, but I just had it the other day where I was like, well, thinking of the idea if he was like so like buried in banshee-ness at this time, and like nobody ever
Yeah.
said it, but it was like kind of one of those ideas was like, where if he'd stayed with the Banshees, clearly he would have been their guitarist, and he clearly would have like helped them write songs, and then
Right.
you almost wonder like just hearing that song as Susie would have sung it, like, oh, I never like really had thought of it, and I was like, man, that would have been a fucking killer Susie and the Banshee song.
Shake Dog Shake.
Yeah, like if she had just
Damn, dude.
like ripped
Yeah.
it, like I was like thinking of that the other day, and I was like, I mean, it's perfect Cure song, of course, but like had that been one that he like presented to the band or something, I'm
Totally,
like,
dude.
I was like, oh man, because I just had like enough of that like weird like Susie rock vibe to it too, because they got pretty badass,
Yeah.
at times for sure, and
Like, if you just, like, Banshee-ized it.
yeah, she just put her little Susie twist on it. That would have been
Yeah.
fucking cool, but
That's right on, man. That would have been dope.
yeah, I'm glad he.
I wonder
kept
how many
it.
songs, like, he presented.
Yeah, if any,
I would
maybe that
love to
was
hear,
part
like,
of it.
like
you
a
know,
like a B-sides of.
I
Maybe
don't
that's
feel
what
like
the
he
top
was
is,
ever
is just
too
like a
like.
B-sides of what he would have presented to the Banshees.
Yeah, I wonder. I kind of feel
They
like he was never that invested, where he was like, "Fuck that, I'm saving this for myself." But
I don't think that. Like,
yeah.
you would think there'd be better quality
yeah, if they had
of songs if he was like, I'm keeping this jams for myself.
sure, but I mean, he did have like
You know?
the glove and that and this going on, so yeah, maybe it was pretty thinned out by the time he recorded it. Bird Mad Girl. It's weird. I always forget that that's the track 2. And just like, that's a cool
It's a
song.
good song.
I like it. Yeah, it's a
I
little
like
like
it.
it's like a little flighty, funner than you would
It's a little-
initially think, but it's like
It's a little jaunty.
yeah, a little cuckoo. But I definitely
But it's
remember
cute.
our
It's
art teacher.
cute.
Remember art class, 7th grade, I think it was.
Yes. I remember art class.
And we had some boring. It was like one of those days where you had art class and like you got a quiz or something about some art history or something in 7th grade. And I don't remember whatever the
like
hell.
the answer is like paintbrush.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
How do you paint something
I
with
remember-
a paintbrush?
And I remember us just being bored out of our minds, and like I started doodling, and I wrote like, it's like I want to be a polar bear on the top, and like I think I
Yeah,
wrote
it's
like I could be a polar
Why?
bear. I should be a polar bear. I was like I want to be a polar bear, and then I got the test back. She goes, why? Like she like did as a teacher note, and just being shitty kids, we were all like. She doesn't get it. I was like, why would she? Like, it's just really one of those random memories that I associate because we were like just really
dope.
into this song at the time, and along the same lines, and
I totally remember that. Like,
along the same lines, and I feel like it had to have
do you
been
know how
that
many yearbooks I
class.
signed with that quote?
Like, I could be a polar bear.
Yeah.
But yeah. Remember we made Mask in that class too. And
Yes.
we made Robert Smith Mask. I believe both of us did, right? And then this redneck kid, who was probably one of the redneck kids that made fun of us and threatened our lives.
Paint that shit red, man.
He just, well, we were out or something a day. I know mine in particular. I can't remember if he painted yours red too, but I don't know why he would have
No,
grabbed.
mine was cool.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why. And like, she's just like I was out a day and I came back in my Robert Smith mask. We made like paper mache mask or something, and I came back and it was all white with big hair and stuff, and he had painted it red. And she's like, he said it was his. I'm like, it's not. She's like, oops, whoops, man, sorry. And I was just like, now
I'll do whatever I want, man.
Yeah, just
how would you not know that's not like?
Yeah,
how do you not know that's not yours? Like I was confused.
I thought I made a mask with big hair. Yeah, what a prick, man. And then like I had to paint it again, and he just turned pink. But then I like tried to make it into some kind of hanging garden mask. I remember, and it didn't work. But then,
what a way to live through life.
Yeah.
You know, like that dude just like, I thought it was mine. It's like, dude, you know that wasn't yours.
Yeah. And it was such a pivotal moment of my life that's like just me through and through being, yeah, it's cool, whatever.
Was it pivotal where you're just like, nah, people are fucking idiots?
Yeah, well, just in the sense that I was like, I remember having to like, just be like, it's cool, man, this is no problem. But then like the whole rest of the day, and I'm clearly still talking about it, so like really pissed me off. You know, I was like,
suffer. You're just accepting like suffering through other people's
dumb mistakes.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's just like, god damn it. Who knows if that mask would have come out? I could have merged my love of the Karen puppetry at a young age. My whole life could have been different. But...
Nope.
But
is that what the top is, though? You know,
totally. Moving on like, to the Wailing Wall. Have you?
I know. Next thing you know, you have the Wailing Wall.
So you're not a fan. I think I can piece together.
No, like,
nah, not my least like favorite on the album, but I like it, but I don't love it.
Like the album has such a weird feel. Like
it's definitely early. It should not be track 3. You know, like if it was buried at like track 8 or something, like it would have made more sense. Don't you think?
What, like try to the whole record is such a weird movement of songs. Like
yeah, it doesn't matter where it is. I guess.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah,
like Shake Talk Shake is dope. Birdman is fine. Wailing Wall is dumb. Give Me It.
But what about Wailing Wall in the sense if they just recorded it
dressing
different?
Up is good.
You just plowing through them all right now? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, because they're dumb. Like
they're not dumb. I wouldn't say it's like, you know, like
Give Me It's dumb. Like,
yeah,
it has
that's one of my
like,
least favorites. But he said that was supposed to be a Glove song, which should have been.
I could see it with the drums and the rhythm of it. It's just like that's the only like I like aspects of a lot of these songs.
Yeah.
But Give Me It just like stands out as just like
yeah, too much sax. Like
yeah, some.
But if that sax got Pearl into the band, you know, like
that's what's up.
Then it's all worth it. But at the same time, it was like
exactly
like ugh, it's not that great of a song. I did put on a mix for Casey. She wanted to make a child labor mix. They suggested it. One of them like
child labor,
like something to listen to while you're starting your labor, you know. And she was like, just make like a really long mix of mellow shit, and then like when stuff gets crazy, mix. I'm like, okay. And it was clearly just something for me to do that I could do, but like even in the back of my head, I was like, she's not gonna want to listen to any of this shit once it comes time to like push a baby out of your body, you know. It's like, but then I was like, holy fuck, Give Me It is like the perfect like giving labor song. It was like, give me your fucking mom, give me. It was like, and it just like if you listen to the words, it's perfect.
What the fuck?
So next time you hear that song,
what song was your child like birth? Like what song did it slap out?
Well, strangely enough, like because her labor was so long. Like, she'd fucking threw the iPod in the corner in the first, like, hour, and it never even came anywhere close to her from then on. And then it was just, like, you know, D-Day, basically, from then on. But then...
You're not focused on the volumes of the iPod in the corner?
She was not having my awesome mix. I was like, that mix was awesome. We should put it back on. But,
that'd have been dope if, like, while she was giving birth, you were, like, fucking around with a playlist.
Yeah, well, it got to that point in a sense where I wasn't fucking with the
worst
iPod.
Dad ever. Worst husband ever.
Almost. It was that bad. Well, she said she wanted music on, and we just had the laptop, so I just put Disintegration Disintegration on loop. And we listened to Disintegration like 15 times in a row. And it came so close, like the chimes are coming and shit. I was like, oh my God, if he like comes out like right at playing song, that would be awesome. And
can I call you arrogant or something? Like, I don't know where that falls.
it would be great.
That's fucked up and beautiful.
Yeah, I don't even think I've shared this story with you. It's so weird, but like,
no, dude.
And it played so many times that like by the end, when she was finally in the last few pushes,
You just played
it ended
over and over again.
Well, it ended like the album ended, and I didn't have it on loop. And like it was like you're saying, I couldn't like reach over and like put, you know, like it's like this.
You're like fast forwarding on songs.
Yeah, I could be like fucking DJing while the fucking kid's coming out, you know. So yeah, but ultimately he was born to Disintegration, so that was cool. And when he was like,
what song though? Like, do you remember what song? Or
it like ended when he actually came out. Like the album ended, and I didn't restart it, so he didn't. He was. It played for like 15 times before he actually came out.
Everyone got the point.
It took forever. It was so long. But the first song, I put little headphones next to him, like the night he was born, and Pictures of You was the first song he ever heard. So I made sure that was the first song he ever heard. So, but yeah, we're off topic.
Dope.
Yeah, but I always thought "Give Me It" would be like the perfect child labor song. But you know.
That is kind of like a little, like. She's like breathing heavy, like, get me out, get me out.
On the saxophone going. Anyway, so then moving on to Dressing Up, a more peaceful number. You like that one, huh? That would probably be one of my.
I like Dressing Up. Dope, man. That's one of my. That's probably my favorite song of that record.
Really? Above Shake That Shake and Caterpillar?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think so. Like,
it's
like Dressing Up is sweet, man. Like, that's just such a pretty little.
Yeah. It's nice.
And
a little goofy for me. I don't know. Which is weird because I like a lot of goofy shit. I don't know. It just seems goofy. Like I like the synth flute on like sad shit, but like a happy synth flute. I don't know. It's a little weird, but I don't know. It's got a plucky.
Whimsy. Yeah. It's very whimsy, but I like. It's one of those weird ones where I like his
vocals.
Yeah, his vocals, because he is really like.
Yeah.
And just all those like goofy aspects. If someone was to make fun of Robert Smith, they would make those vocal
right
tones, and you're like.
Well, I feel probably more similar to Caterpillar, the next track, that way, where I feel like that's just like the sweetest of sweet songs, and that's my number one.
If on the cassette, does that round out? I think it's like the start of side B.
Yeah, I think Dressing Up ends it, and then start of side B. Yeah. And
That's strong. That's a strong closer from side A to B for going to that.
And looking at it in that aspect, I think I like almost most of side B better. But yeah, totally. I love Caterpillar. It's just like it's kind of that first, like you're saying. I don't remember if it was when we hit record or not at this point.
It's but Kiss Me jams.
Yeah, it's kind of that where that first. Like touch of Romantic Cure in a sense, where it's like got this sweet lyrics where every other line is like just stabs you right in the heart, and then there's a lot of like, what is he talking about? But it's cool because you don't really know what he's talking. But
it's so different.
Yeah,
it's so different.
And like the acoustic guitars and stuff is like something we haven't really seen at this point, and has such a rambly, just the whole do-do-dos and the. And just the metaphor of the, caterpillar to butterfly is like obvious.
Wait, what?
But
I never caught the.
It's super obvious, but it's brilliant. It never gets old. It's like everyone's
obvious but brilliant.
It's so brilliant, man. Everyone's been in that point in your relationships of any stages where people grow apart and change, and it's fucking good.
Anything is possible.
Right, but it's a great song because you could take a metaphor like that and make a really trite song out of it. But
I
There's
know.
there's nothing trite about this song, and I love it.
No.
It's
It's one of the
that was a
songs
huge
like
highlight at the show, like
yeah,
hearing that because they don't play it live that often,
yeah, totally. I remember hearing that jam when I was a kid, man, and like
yeah,
it wasn't like one of those things about the Cure that initially caught me, you know.
mm-hmm,
But upon further listen of their catalog, you know, it was just like, whoa,
mm-hmm,
like what is Caterpillar like? And then it was like a cute video.
yeah,
You know, if you look at a band and like their songs where it's like that's gonna be on the best of, like their legacy songs where it's just like, god damn, like songs that define a band.
yeah,
How few songs off of the top that make that cut compared to a lot of their records where it's
yeah,
just like, you know, if you want to like do averages, you know, it's like, you know, it's to me it's like there's like two or three songs off of every record of theirs, if not the whole fucking record,
right,
but two or three songs where I'm like, those are legacies, man, like
yeah.
that defines you. And how
But
few
it's funny,
songs
you're
off
almost
the top that defines the band. It's Caterpillar, which is like a fucking wait, a
yeah.
180 or a 360 or whatever one turns it around the most.
Well, I like
You
that
know, it's
our yin and yang in the sense that you're saying that, kind of shame on the top for only having a couple songs. But to me, like, I always look at albums like if you have an album with Shake Dog Shake and Caterpillar on it, he could literally like fart on a snare drum for the rest of who fucking
it.
cares, man? That's all you need, especially at this point, like looking back. I mean,
You're
like I
so
said,
desperate.
if
You're
it,
so
no,
desperate.
I mean those songs are that good, man. Fuck the rest of it. Who cares?
When Piggy in the Mirror is just you're like,
That's a
thank
great
God,
song
what a good
too.
song.
Yeah, no, that's
It is a good
song.
song, and
Yeah,
I
I'll
love
take
it.
that one.
But if that's like the best you can get,
For 1 year of their career, yeah, fine, whatever. Who cares?
I know.
It's
And
like, even Empty World, move on to that fucking stupidest song. That's my least favorite song on this album, Empty World.
This is a dumb
if,
fucking
if you
song.
want to hear me bash something, it's like, yeah, it could have been a cool song if they didn't go with the marching band drum and the flute. And yeah, man, it's like,
I know that boop beep beep.
it's so rare for Robert or whoever's at the helm at this point of production, and like, that's like clearly like one of those
Yeah.
initial ideas where it's like, well, it's kind of about armies and marching. Let's take the first idea you would have would be put like a marchy beat
The
to
first
it.
idea is
Yeah, that's
key, man.
and it's like,
It's a weird record, man. It is totally a transitional record, I
Yeah.
think, and that doesn't make it
and
bad.
I think that's why
makes
it's
it
important to say
interesting.
like why
It's
so
more
many
interesting than shitty.
Yeah, and that's why so many Cure fans and diehard fans are so conflicted on it, I think, and why this is probably coming out so like back and forth hodgepodge in the sense that it's like you don't really know because it's like you can't have one without the other. You can't totally bash it because it has cool stuff, but at the same time,
Yeah.
if you're comparing it to like Faith and Pornography, and then like if you
Yeah.
compare it to like Head on the Door and Wish and Disintegration and stuff, it's like clearly not there, but at the same time,
No.
it's so weird. I don't know. Yeah.
Fucking Pornography is psychedelic as fuck. Like, if you want to deem a record psychedelic, it's not the fucking top, man. Like that's
Yeah.
people paying no attention and not listening to what they've done, Like,
yeah, it's just
and the
careless
top
word
is always
dropping.
weird, man. But it is like creeping open the door and like, what's on the other side? Oh, the head on the door.
Yeah.
And like it's a whole new phase for the band, and I think for a lot of people, like, and me, I'm gonna say me, not a lot of people, but me, like, for me,
Mm-hmm.
like it's the big divide
Yeah.
of what I deem as like a psychedelic band. Like
Yeah.
they're not psychedelic, but just like this old sound, like not old, but just this beautiful sound of The Cure, like this beautiful side of The Cure that I fucking loved.
Yeah.
And I love, and they're my favorite to this day. And I've been listening to it for like over 20 years,
Yeah.
hardcore, you know.
The fact that we have
But
memories of
it.
middle school and
It's the
talking about this
marginal
album is
line, you know.
crazy. Yeah. It's
Like we've been talking about this record for fucking ever.
I know, that's why it's insane. Like
And
Banana
but it's that
Fishbones,
big-
I actually
it's
had
that
a
big
memory
ch-
of that where I remember sitting on the bleachers in middle school again, and they had some
Right.
kind of a talent show thing going on at the end of the year.
Right.
And they announced it at one thing, like, and then an assembly where we were sitting there. And for some fucking reason in my head, we hadn't even like played together. I don't think at that point even, but like I had it in my head that if somehow we could cover Banana Fishbones, like we would just rule the school. And I'm like, man, I think we could really do this. Like, how do I like present this to Donald? And like, it's like, man, it's gonna be tough to figure out the notes of that song. But like, I don't know what the hell was in my head at the moment. I was like, why that of
Yeah.
all? Like, what? Like Banana Fishbones.
like-
Clearly, that's the most normal song to play to a seventh grade assembly.
Where
But
you're like,
crawl into a ball like you have more fun. I was like, wow,
we could,
that would have
one do that.
yeah, like yeah,
then
we couldn't
two,
have played
like,
it, and then two, why would we have played
Jesus.
Christ? But like for some reason, I had my heart set on that song. I was like, that's the one, man. We didn't put a piece of metal in your head, you said. Make you dead.
It would have been like me on drums and you on keyboards.
Yeah, it'd be like,
not even like a synthesizer, but like a Casio.
God. Thank God that didn't
And
happen.
this is why we didn't get laid.
No. I'm too busy thinking of ways to not do that. And yeah.
I wasted. What else many ways to not do that? I managed to not get laid.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Speaking of B-sides, real quick, any thoughts on Top, the song? I don't know. What do you think? I think it's cool. It's kind of simple.
I like the Top.
Yeah, it's like whatever. It's one of my favorites on the album, I guess. A couple good
Yeah.
lines, even though it's kind of trotting and like just plotting, I guess would be a better word. But
But that's a charm.
yeah.
I like it makes me long like whenever I hear the Top, like, because it rounds out the record.
Yeah.
I like always think like, why wouldn't you just do this the whole time?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you?
Yeah, it's one that you could kind of see the old Cure knocking out, and it would have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a few little
Totally.
traces of that for sure. So, but yeah, B-sides, man. I hate being a dude that like the idea of
B-sides are better.
yeah, and like reworking of the album track listing and stuff.
Mhm.
But it is one because like I had theories on Happy the Man and Throw Your Foot, all weird as fuck still, but like.
Yep.
Man, that would have made it a way better album. So, like, I don't know. Like, would it have been, like, a more Cure album even? Like, throwing those in? Because there's a lot more, like, just, like,
Yes.
weird shit where he's just, like, doesn't really have words, but he's just kind of cutting loose. And, like, I love it. I think it's way better. But,
It reminds me like the whole record, even like not even counting the B-sides, but definitely the B-sides. It's very apparent where like the lack of like cohesive lyrics and lyrical melodies,
Mhm.
like because anytime like I think like when you can when I can hear like Robert Smith like lyrics lacking,
mhm.
he fills it in with lots of like hoo ha her ho, like lots of little filler things, you know, and there's a lot of that in the B-sides for the Top, and there's a lot of that I feel like in the Top, you know, and I could give a fuck less about lyrics, but just like say what we say in a nice melody, like,
Yeah.
and that goes far for me, like, but the lyrics are goofy compared to like the heaviness of what he can do, because he does like bring some thunder,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like Throw Your Foot in particular is just like, and you can see why all three of those are B-sides because
exactly.
they're pretty thin and they don't really fit even as far as, even though nothing really fits on the top, they still would kind of,
Yeah.
even before you called, I was kind of just dorking around like swapping ones in to see if I could like come up with a track listing where I was like, oh my god, this is way better. But like
This would be the perfect version of the top.
yeah, it was still weird as fuck.
Like swapping out songs and putting in B-sides.
Yeah, I
like,
tried it because I've done one of those for Wild Mood Swings, which I have a theory on too. But and it actually worked, I think. But like this, yeah, I still couldn't really. I think I'd still like it better in there.
Top.
What do you think the takeaways from this album are? I mean, we've got that it's a transition album, and we got that it's not cohesive. Do you think that's pretty much the underlining theme?
It is, and in retrospect in life, I think this album exposes the expanse of time in people's lives and what they do, and how they decide to do things, and even though if it doesn't match up to what like I dig, it's respectable because it does peel that band-aid and expose that scab of just like, whoa, like what the fuck is that? And it really stands out, and because of that, and that kind of makes it beautiful. And the older I've gotten, the more I listen to it.
Yeah.
I don't know, and that says a lot about a band to me. Where it can throw me for a loop.
Right.
Like, that's respectable. It's not my go-to like Cure jams that I put on, but I listen to a lot out of respect.
Yeah. The fact that it can be like, weird and intriguing and confusing at the same time, or it's like just enough to pull you in still and not just be like, there's so many bands where I listen to something, it's like their 5th album or whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I don't really give a shit enough to.
They're doing that again.
Yeah, right. I'm just not invested enough to really care to go on that journey with them, But then there's bands like The Cure where you really just gotta hear them out and you roll with it. And I think a lot of it had to do with knowing what comes next. And I think that's a huge part of getting Simon back in the action. Like Phil was great. We didn't really talk about Phil Thornley much, but he kind of stepped in and did what he had to do. But I think as far as Cureness goes, you got to have Simon back in there, and something else going on guitar at this point with the Cure. You're not gonna cut it, so you need Pearl, and boy, do they both deliver from here on out. It's a
team got back together. It's like some Buckaroo Banzai shit, and it's dope. It's like got the band back together, and they slayed.
Yeah, somehow it's strange that the top could still be considered, even like by Cure fans' standards. You kind of look at it as a dip, but like in a sense, it's a momentum record. Where it was enough to like show that he's still fucking got it, and he enough to pull not only Simon back, but pull Pearl in and get Boris on board, and and it's just like, how is this a momentum record? It's crazy, but it was, it's like somehow
like, you shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Like everyone was like, damn, dude.
Yeah,
you went dark.
You would think like Simon would be like, fuck that, after like hearing the top and what he did, like if you want me to like play some like world music jams and shit, fuck that, but like I guess
like, I'm gonna play some fucking dope dark bass lines, and you're gonna yodel on some reverb, and we're gonna make some fucking records, man. It's like it's like cracking a colon with the boys, man.
Yeah,
like, you got to get back to that shit. And it was like a cry for help.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's what it was. They're all like, "Oh my god, we got to step in now."
And it just shows what like a dope band it is. Where like it's not a solo act. It's like, look what he does when he's on his own.
Yeah,
Like that's what he did. What a weird record. Like every angle of that of the top is fucking weird, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I take the
I don't.
glass half full angle maybe, but I don't know. It's definitely a weird one. It's of my classic Cure albums, which I would count everything up to Wish. Maybe I would say it's technically my least favorite, but I still love it and enjoy it in a certain degree. But so yeah, I think it's pivotal, whether you like it or not. The top is the
That's
bridge
it.
that carries
That's
us
it.
over to
That's
Hitland.
it.
I think it is, and
That's
so,
the top.
so I think that's what we got, and we turn the corner, and next thing you know, we're all wearing gray suits and in an actual band cranking out the hits. But I do feel, even though I think you're probably still on board for Head on the Door, I will warn the
Yeah.
listeners that we might start. This is
I'm looking forward to it.
this is where my passions kick in big time. So I might start getting a little edgier. Then I might get a little defensive from here on out. Just to warn you, Donald.
Do you still have feelings?
These are my fucking my sweethearts at this point up. The Boris years. I can't. I can go back and forth and be like, yeah, whatever. The top kind of sucks. Yeah, I'm sort of with you on a certain day and this and that, but. I don't know, man. Once Head on the Door kicks in, from here on
Boris
out,
is gonna bring some thunder, man.
I might
like he's a game changer.
I might start getting all McLaughlin group on you if you start talking shit at this point. So all the listeners out
you
there,
may find,
get ready.
You may find me being a little more sympathetic with what I say.
Okay.
I don't know.
We'll
I
see.
don't know, but
Who knows what'll happen? But I'm just throwing the warning out there. I might be a little touchier than I might have been, all cool and relaxed at this point. But it's gonna get
is the
get
bad
vicious.
boy gonna have to put on some practice mitts?
Maybe I might have
Are
to.
we gonna spar?
We might have
Are
to
we gonna
spar
have
if you
some
start
shit?
talking shit from here, from 1985 up.
I ain't
man.
taking your shit no more.
I'm sick of this. I can't handle this stuff. I gave you the top. Now don't you dare try to shit on Head on the Door. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you soon. And for the top, talk hard.
Talk hard.
All right, guys. As much as Donald and I love to hog the album episodes, this is a very divisive album, as you've just heard. So we figured, maybe we should get some outside input. Because to be honest, I don't think we solved the mystery of the top. I don't know where we ended up with this one. So we figured we'll get some contributions from the listeners, and we'll top off this episode with their quick thoughts. One tends to lean a little more anti-top, one's a little more pro-top. So we round it all out nice and even. Let's kick it off first with our old buddy Chaz, an undisputed diehard Cure fan. But guess what? Top might not be his favorite record. Let's hear what he has to say.
I didn't dive into the top until pretty late into my love for the Cure, mainly because of the artwork. It might sound petty, but there's something to be said when it comes to an album and the music being reflected in the artwork of the album, especially if that band is in control of that artwork. I've never done it, but if I rank the Cure's artwork album by album, it'd probably come damn close to the rank of my favorite albums. The artwork is just terrible. It's a mess. The font is bad for the band, and the color of the font for the band is gold or brown or puke, I don't know. The colors don't mix. It's like walking to a brand new house and seeing the kitchen and it's from the 70s. To me, the artwork reflects the album as a whole, and it's just a mess. I will admit that it starts off great. Shake Dog Shake is a great fucking song that I get more appreciation for each time I see it live. It's the best song on the album. Birdman Girl isn't bad. I like the music, but there's something about Robert's voice, not just in the song, but across the whole album. It's just inconsistent. It seems all over the place. It may just be me. I've been told that I hear or see things that aren't there, but everybody has their interpretation. I don't really care. It's just, will just attribute it to being me, because I know some people love this album and love the singing. I can't stand it. Wailing Wall is a song that had been done a few years before, would have probably ended up on Faith and Pornography, and everybody would have loved it. The vibe and the mood of the song, but a couple of years later, down the line, it just doesn't work. Give Me It has everything it needs to be a punk song, but then again, another one that just doesn't work. Coming from the hardcore punk community, I've seen bands that start off in that direction with aggression and speed, and then they go away from it to do some other type of sound. They try to come back to it. Not saying that's what the Cure did, but they started off basically as a punk band, and this song is fast and aggressive, and they try to come back to it, and it just doesn't seem genuine to me. Dressing Up is another song that I love the music to, but Robert's voice just kills it. He sounds unintelligible at times, and at other point he's just trying too much. It's definitely a song that I love listening to live, but not on the record. I've watched it on YouTube. I've listened to it with other live recordings and bootlegs and everything, and it gets a great reaction when they start playing it. But I just can't do it. The Caterpillar is the second best song on the album, and thankfully it's the only single. I guess I can make a case for Shake Dog Shake. I love the artwork for the single, unlike the album, and I know the drawing for the single appears on in the album. Piggy in the Mirror is yet another song that I like the music to, but Robert's voice and his delivery just don't do it for me. To be honest, I'd love to hear this whole album re-recorded. The album was definitely hurt by not having the input of the rest of the band. And I know Robert said that it's basically a solo album, and you had Lowell there helping out when he could, I guess. But, Robert was burnt out, and Lowell was, from all accounts, was plastered most of the time. So I think having, like, the input of Simon and, like, some of the other guys during that time would have been a great idea. Even now, I would love to hear it re-recorded. I think it would be a whole lot better. I'm not saying it would be one of my favorite albums, but it would sound a whole hell of a lot better. Empty World, I just can't get past the 1776 vibe with the drumming and the flute. Banana Fishbone is their Captain Beefheart song. I've read that Robert's in the Captain Beefheart, so this is like the closest thing I think they've ever done that could, I guess, could be compared to it. I know it doesn't really sound like it, but it just has that mood to me. And then to finish off the album, The Top, it's just not a good song. Usually the title track of the song you want to be fucking great, like Disintegration. That title song is fucking amazing. It gets me every time. Overall, The Cure's best work has always had this mood or vibe to it, or whatever you want to call it. This just doesn't have it. The only other album I can think of that they did that was really good, but didn't necessarily have a vibe or a mood, would be Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. But I think we can all agree, even though the album was too long, that has some of their best work on it. The Top to me has maybe 2-3 good songs, a couple decent ones, and a whole lot of shit. And I'd have to say, I know this is going to ruffle some feathers or whatever, but and besides Bloodflowers, I'd have to say this is my least favorite album of theirs. If I had to rank them, I think that the self-titled and Dream had some good songs on it. As a whole, they weren't very good, but I think that I could pull out, 3, 4, maybe 5 songs that I actually really like, and then the rest just aren't very good. But with The Top, it's a struggle. Funny thing is, I was reading a review while I was looking up this album and trying to get familiar with it again, and one of the reviews said that 20 years from now, Cure fans will look back and basically marvel over how great this album is. and it's never fucking happened, and it's never gonna fucking happen. And I heard there was a rumor a couple of years ago that Robert was gonna do another trilogy tour with, what was it? I think it was Wish, The Top, and Head on the Door, which would, two of them would have been amazing to see. This one, I don't think so. I kind of got bummed out, and I was hoping maybe they would have thrown another different album in there. Even like Three Imaginary Boys, I would take that, even though I saw it already on the Reflections tour. That was amazing. So I think that's all I have on the top. I'm sorry if I pissed anybody off and this is your favorite album. Or maybe you're of the opinion that I need to listen to it again, which I've listened to it probably about 4 or 5 times in the last week and I can't take it anymore. So please don't think that I didn't take my time in diving back into it. I gave it its fair shot. I've given it its fair shot over the years, and it's just not a good album. I'm sorry. I've never been a super fan of a band. I am with The Cure, and with the very few other amount of bands, but I've never been one of those fans that everything that an artist puts out, I have to love. I'm definitely not that type of person. I have friends like that are like that, and it's so annoying. You're allowed to criticize your favorite band. You're allowed to criticize your favorite sports team. You're allowed to criticize your favorite politician, movie star, whatever. That doesn't mean that you don't like them or that you don't love them. You just want better from them. And fuck, if a band's going to be going on for this long and put out 13 albums and only have, in my opinion, 2 shitty albums, a couple of mediocre ones, and all the rest are fucking phenomenal. I don't think very many bands could say that. A lot of great bands, like bands that people just think are the shit, they're lucky to have one perfect to great album. Let alone maybe 2. And The Cure have had, out of 13 albums, they have 5 to 6 great to perfect albums, which is fucking amazing. So they're allowed to have one shitstorm or 2 shit sandwiches. I'm fine with that, whatever. Frankly, I can't wait for them to put out another album. I hope it comes soon. I hope that they're working on the next album today. And I hope they go into the studio tomorrow and record it and it comes out next week. And if it's shitty then, I'll say it's shitty. If it's great, I think it's great. If it's mediocre, it's mediocre. It's still something. I would still take it. I think that's all I gotta say. Talk to you soon. And I'm still forever waiting for the Wish reissue. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, yes, the Wish reissue. Don't even get me started on that. But thank you so much, Chaz. Great insight. Well put on all opinions. Giving the bad boy a run for his money, maybe, on that one. But like you said, gotta have your favorites, gotta have your least favorites. And always a pleasure hearing from you. Thanks so much for sending that in. And let's wrap this thing up with a slightly more positive view on the top then. What do you say, guys? Let's go back to another longtime listener and friend of the show, Tyler, to wrap this whole debacle of the top up. Put it into perspective for us, Tyler. Let's see what we got.
The Top was not really a easy album for me to get into. I remember going through The Cure's discography, which I didn't listen to in chronological order, but by the time I got to The Top, I thought that I was pretty well versed in the band and what kind of style they represented. And I remember up to that point, I had heard Pornography, The Head on the Door, I want to say Disintegration, 17 Seconds, and I want to say Wish. Those were the albums I had heard up to that point. And maybe also Faith. And so going into The Top, I was a little bit interested in what the middle point was between something as dark and heavy as Pornography and something that was a little bit more lighthearted and poppy sounding like The Head on the Door. And what I got was something that doesn't really... It doesn't really fully give you the answers of what led the band, and Robert Smith in particular, from Pornography to The Head on the Door. But instead, the top is this very psychedelic, kaleidoscopic snapshot into Robert Smith's mentality at the time. And I feel like the top is very unjustly maligned, and I think that a lot of people don't like it. In fact, it is, as far as The Cure's output in the 1980s goes, this would probably be a lot of people's least favorite album, which I can definitely see that argument if you look at their 80s output: 17 Seconds, Faith, Pornography, The Top, The Head on the Door, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, and Disintegration. For a casual listener, I can definitely see why The Top would be an album that is not really to be enjoyed, because I feel like it's very much like Faith or Pornography or Disintegration and 17 Seconds, in the sense that it's not really a commercial sounding album. There's only one single released from it, which was The Caterpillar. But I would probably put it gladly in my top 5 Cure records. I'd probably rank it even higher than Faith or 17 Seconds or Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. I mean, definitely higher than Wish. The Top is an album that I feel really deserves multiple listens. I think that if you just listen to it once and are not necessarily impressed by it, that you should definitely go back and revisit it at some point. I'm holding my copy of it right now in my hands, and I'm looking at the track list, and there's not really one song on here that now I don't enjoy. About a year ago or so, I may not have been the world's biggest fan of the song Give Me It, but seeing the band perform it on their North American tour last year, especially seeing the treatment that Reeves Gabrels gave it, just completely elevated that song to me. But, Shake Dog Shake, The Caterpillar, Piggy in the Mirror, Banana Fish Bones, The Top, I mean, this has some of my absolute favorite Cure songs on it. I do understand the observation that it is very much it's practically a Robert Smith solo album. He's doing the bulk of the work on here as far as the instrumentation and the songwriting goes. Lal Tolhurst is listed on here as playing other instruments, as well as co-writing a couple of the songs on here. But for the most part, it's pretty much just going to be Robert Smith doing the bulk of the work on here. Lal Tolhurst is credited as co-writing Bird Mad Girl, The Caterpillar, and Piggy in the Mirror, which is really just 3 of the 10 songs on this album. And I can't really say what his songwriting contributions were, because those 3 songs aren't really ones that don't seem out of place compared to everything else. And of course, I think going into The Top, if you haven't heard it before, or if you want to give it a little bit more context, of course, you really need to listen to the 3 singles that they had released before it. Let's Go to Bed, The Walk, and The Love Cats, especially the B-sides to those. All those are compiled on the Japanese Whispers album. Songs like The Upstairs Room and Lament, I think really point you at the direction that the band is going to take on the Top. It's almost new wave, it's almost synth pop, it's almost neo psychedelia. But it's something completely unique, and if you look at the trajectory of The Cure and if you look at their albums, you can kind of see explanations or reasons for, you know, certain albums going into the next one. Of course, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me is the natural progression of an album like The Head on the Door. 17 Seconds, Faith, and Pornography all bleed into each other. You know, on an album like Wish, you have 3 guitarists because of, you know, Smith's insistence of not wanting to make Disintegration Part 2. But with the Top is very unique in The Cure's discography because it does not sound really anything like the albums immediately before or after it. And there's no one song on it that you could say could have appeared on another Cure album. If you listen to an album like Wild Mood Swings, there's a couple of songs on there that could have been on Blood Flowers. If you listen to the Cure self-titled album, there's a song on there or two that could have appeared on 413 Dream. If you listen to The Head on the Door, there's multiple songs on there that sound like they could have gone on a Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, but there's nothing on the Top that you could mistake from having been included on another Cure album. It is completely its own beast, and yeah, it's very... It's a very confrontational album in the sense that Robert Smith's vocals on it are very expressionistic and very impressionistic. There's a manic feeling to it, of course, fueled by Robert Smith's, you know, taking of psychedelic drugs at the time. It's a very frenzied album. That being said, though, it is one that I come back to very, 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 very often. And if I had to make, you know, a top 5 Cure albums, this would definitely be in the top 5. I'd say it would probably go Pornography, Disintegration, The Head on the Door, The Top, and then Faith. And for as many people, as many Cure fans love Faith and put it on this pedestal, which I think it very rightly deserves to be on, I think that The Top overshadows it. And I know that's a very unpopular opinion, and I know that I think that next to their last couple of records and Wild Mood Swings, I think that The Top is probably the most... it's the album that causes the most friction in Cure fans. It seems to be an album that you either absolutely love or you absolutely hate. And I do understand, of course, some of the criticism that is levied at it, but I think that it's unjustly maligned. I mean, it's just such a serious but fun and varied and singular and intense and cathartic album. And I mean, my absolute favorite song on the album is the title track. I think that the song The Top is one of the greatest Cure songs of all time. I mean, I would put the title track up there with something like Open or Disintegration or Watching Me Fall from Blood Flowers. I think that The Top is just such a very emotional and heart-wrenching song, especially after I mean, what's the song that precedes it? Banana Fish Bones. I mean, you've got probably, one of the most emotional and ethereal songs The Cure has ever done, right after one of the goofiest and most fun songs they've ever done. And, I think just those two songs back to back kind of gives a good example of what the album is about. I don't really feel like there's much else that I can say about it to do it justice. Again, either this is an album you really love or this is an album that you really hate. And luckily for me, I fall into the former. I was very lucky to see them perform, I want to say maybe 5 of these songs on their US tour last year. Of course I saw them do Shake Dog Shake. They did that at all 4 of the shows that I attended. I saw them do Give Me It, Dressing Up, which was a very nice surprise, The Caterpillar, and also Piggy in the Mirror, which was a very nice surprise. I have always been a fan of that song, and I think when I listened to this album for the first time, Shake Dog Shake and Piggy in the Mirror were really the first 2 songs on here that I fell in love with. And it's been very refreshing ever since Reeves joined the band to see the band really re-embrace a lot of the songs on here, because for the longest time Shake Dog Shake was the only one that they were performing on this album. And they did those holiday shows in 2014 where they did all 10 songs from it at every show. So it's very nice to see Robert and the band re-embracing this album. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about The Top. I think it's a very great record. And if you haven't listened to it, or you have listened to it and you don't remember yourself enjoying it, listen to it again. I'd say that out of every album by The Cure, this is one of the ones that most demands a re-listen. Yeah, so this has been, thank you for having me on your show again, and I look forward to speaking with you all again. Thank you.
Of course, anytime, Tyler. Thank you so much for sending it in and taking the helm on being the positive side of the coin for The Top here on the Holy Hour. Always a pleasure hearing from you, and we hope to hear from you soon in the future. And thanks so much to you guys for listening, and I feel like we really covered every possible thought anyone could have on The Top at this point. If we somehow missed something, feel free to chime in and add your 2 cents on the Facebook page. We'll have a thread for this specific episode as well as past episodes going over to the Holy Hour podcast on Facebook, and you can find some additional materials that will accompany this episode there. And as always, subscribe on iTunes so you don't miss any episodes. Rank us, review us. Apparently that helps. Plus, we always just love to hear your thoughts on what you like, what you don't like with the show. So subscribe, rate us, and rank us there. If you'd rather just send me a message, send it to gavinconner@gmail.com. And always feel free to contribute to the show. Any car thought that you have, or just sitting around your house, or you got a moment and you're like, you know what, they haven't talked about this yet, and I feel like talking about The Cure by myself. Just hit record on your phone, email it straight to me, and we'll incorporate into the show one way or another. A great way to find out about those upcoming episodes is on Instagram. So also on there, the Holy Hour podcast on Instagram. Check that out. And Spotify. We do have a Spotify page on the Holy Hour podcast with playlists compiled by some of our listeners, some of our friends. And we'd love random playlists from you. What are your top 13 Cure songs? Put them together. Email it to me. I'll put it together. Just send it to gavinconner.com. The list of the songs, I'll piece it together and include you in it. But until then, Arusha's project, CureFanDocumentary.com is where you find out all about that. Push is the name of that epic film in the works. So go on over and check that out. As well as MixedUpGifts.com for all your shopping pleasures. Cool, unusual gifts, some of which may include the likeness of Mr. Robert Smith. So yeah, go check that out. And thank you so much for everyone that's contributed. Again, Chaz and Tyler and Donald for talking the top. And everybody out there on the social media lately, we've been getting a lot of nice feedback and really appreciate it. So thanks, guys. Let's officially lay the top to rest and move on to new topics and the head on the door. See you next time.